The council chamber trembled with a silence so heavy it felt alive. It wasn't the absence of sound, it was the weight of inevitability. 47 species had gathered, each representing civilizations that had survived countless wars, disasters, and cosmic threats. Yet now, they sat on the edge of extinction. Their forms filled the vast circular chamber, some towering and crystalline, refracting the dim light into fractured rainbows, others existing as clouds of gas contained within shimmering magnetic shells. Some were fluid, shifting, barely holding a shape at all. Despite their differences, they shared one thing in that moment: fear. At the center stood the Valoran delegation. Their insectoid bodies, usually symbols of discipline and control, now betrayed something far more fragile. Their limbs were rigid, their posture strained. Behind them, an enormous projection of the galaxy rotated slowly, cold and indifferent. 17 star systems. Gone. Consumed. The Keth swarm moved like a living storm, billions of massive, locust-like entities that devoured everything in their path. Metal, atmosphere, organic life, nothing survived. Not even debris remained, just empty space, as if those systems had never existed. And in 3 months, the core worlds would be next. Thesser stepped forward. Age had carved itself into his hardened shell, darkening it, marking him as one who had seen too much. His presence commanded attention, not because of authority alone, but because of what he represented, the last voice of a species running out of time. When he spoke, his voice carried across the chamber, calm and controlled, but hollow. "We have tried everything." No one interrupted. They all knew it was true. "Our weapons do not slow them. Our fleets are destroyed. Our colonies fall faster than we can evacuate them." There was no emotion in his tone. Not anger, not grief, just fact. Emotion had died with the first fleet. Suggestions emerged, as they always did in desperate councils. Retreat. Consolidation. Abandon the outer systems to protect the core. Sacrifice millions to save billions. Cold logic. Necessary logic. But even as the proposals formed, something inside the chamber resisted. Not because they were wrong, but because they felt like surrender. And then Thesser said something that changed everything. "There is one option left." The silence that followed was different. Heavier. Sharper. It wasn't just fear now. It was curiosity mixed with something far more dangerous. Hope. The Death World Registry. A ripple passed through the chamber. Some species recoiled. Others leaned forward. A few simply froze. The registry was ancient. A relic from an era of exploration, cataloging worlds considered too hostile for normal life. Planets where survival wasn't guaranteed. It was fought for, every moment of every day. Worlds where life evolved not through peace, but through constant conflict. "They are unstable," one delegate protested. "Violent, unpredictable. They kill their own kind," another added. Thesser didn't deny it. "They also survive." That single statement settled over the chamber like a verdict. "There is one world we understand better than the others," he continued. A planet called Earth. The projection shifted. A small, unremarkable world appeared. Blue. Fragile looking. Ordinary. The species that inhabits it, humans, has been rated 9.8 on the survival index. The highest ever recorded. Skepticism spread instantly. "They are primitive," one voice argued. "Their technology is far behind ours. Their weapons are irrelevant," Thesser replied quietly. "What matters is that they do not stop." That was the part that mattered. They do not surrender. They do not collapse under pressure. They do not recognize defeat in the same way we do. And so, for the first time in their history, the council asked for help. Not commanded, not demanded, asked. The message they sent into the void was simple. The reply came faster than it should have. Earth had been listening, waiting, and their response was as cold as the vacuum it traveled through. They were interested. They would come, and they would decide the cost. When the human ships arrived, the chamber expected spectacle. They got none. The vessels were crude by comparison, blocky, functional, stripped of elegance. There was no artistry, no attempt to impress. Only purpose. They looked like tools, because that's exactly what they were. The delegation that followed carried the same energy. No ceremonial gestures, no elaborate displays of respect. Just quiet confidence. At their head stood Marcus Voss. A man who didn't bow, didn't smile, didn't pretend. We came because we chose to, he said. Let's make something clear. This is not gratitude. This is business. And just like that, centuries of diplomacy meant nothing. The galaxy expected war. Humans chose something else entirely. They stopped the fighting. They pulled fleets back from hopeless battles. They shut down offensives that served no purpose but pride. Instead, they began building something far more powerful than weapons. Infrastructure, evacuation routes, supply chains, shelters buried deep beneath planetary surfaces. Systems designed not to win battles, but to outlast them. To the Valorans, it looked like weakness. To humans, it was the only strategy that mattered. You count victory in how many enemies you kill, Voss explained. We count it in how many of our people are still alive when it's over. And slowly, it started to work. The swarm continued its advance. Cities fell, planets burned, but something had changed. The people were no longer there. Casualties stopped rising. Then, for the first time since the invasion began, they began to drop. But survival came with a cost no one had anticipated. Dependence. Every system began to flow through human control. Food, water, medicine, transport, communication. The council still spoke, but humans decided. Because humans sustained life, resistance came. It always does. A faction tried to reclaim independence. They failed in less than a week. Not because they were defeated in battle, but because they ran out of everything. No food, no fuel, no support. They surrendered not to an enemy, but to reality. And that was the moment the truth became undeniable. Humanity hadn't conquered anyone. They had simply made themselves necessary. Even the war itself proved it. While others fought the swarm directly, humans studied it, mapped it, understood it, and when the time came, they didn't destroy it with force. They collapsed it from within. The final victory wasn't loud. It wasn't glorious. It was inevitable. The galaxy celebrated, but humans did not, because for them, this was never about saving anyone. It was about positioning themselves so deeply within the structure of survival that removing them became impossible. In the end, the Valoran Collective survived, but it was no longer free. It had traded independence for existence. And humanity, they didn't win through war. They didn't dominate through force. They did something far more powerful. They became essential. Subscribe my channel. Just tell me thumbs up.